It's the Mike Francesa podcast on the Bet Rivers Network.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Mike Francesa podcast after Game 3 of the ALCS. We're on the Bet Rivers Network, as always, and for all your wagering needs, it's Bet Rivers in New York and New Jersey. Play Sugar House in Connecticut, so whatever you need, just go to their app, and you'll find everything you need for all your needs there, and the program, of course, always on the Bet Rivers Network and wherever you can find your podcast. All right. Before the postseason started, really all of September, really all of August and September, even before that, we told you that this team had really glaring weaknesses and that it was going to be a very, very tough postseason. Before this series started, we talked about how difficult this was going to be. But we will have time when this thing is over to do the retrospective on what should happen. And I have definitive ideas about what should happen. But I'll hold that until this thing is completely over. Right now, what I want to talk about is 3 games into this series, after today's 5-0 embarrassment, and that's what it is. You're back in Yankee Stadium. You have your ace on the mound. You're the New York Yankees. You got to show more fight than that. I mean, that was just a joke. You have 1 hit in the 9th inning, and today you had a pitcher on the mound who gave you opportunities, who was behind in counts, who actually challenged you with fastballs and actually kind of giggled a couple of times when he threw the ball by people. Challenged the Yankees in any way he wanted to and came out smiling completely. And then you have situations where the guys just don't do their job. Let me start with Cole. All right, Bader, who's been anything but great in the field. He's obviously hit a lot of home runs in the postseason, but he's been anything but great in the field. And there's no way he and Judge should have a problem on a fly ball. There's no way. But they do. And they give him an out. So now they put a guy at first base. You are in the 2nd inning of the game. You have to, in game number 3 in this series, considering how good Houston's pitching is, you have got to, with your ace on the mound, you have got to get a lead in this game. That's got to be what you do. Instead, what Cole does is gives up a 2-run homer to the number 9 hitter. You cannot, down 2 games to love, in a game that is a must win, if you are going to win the series. Now the Yankees aren't going to win the series. We know that. Okay? What we want to see is if the Yankees have any fight at all. But they cannot let the Astros continue to just dominate this thing the way they are dominating it. And Cole gives up a 2-run home run, and we're off to the races. The Yankees cannot buy a hit. Feeble at bat after feeble at bat. Being challenged after inning after inning. And then the 6th inning, tell me what Boone's doing. I'm not the biggest Cole guy in the world. You know that. Never have been. It's 2-0. The bases are loaded, and he has not been attacked in the inning, but the bases are loaded, no out. He's 95 pitches in. You can't give up any more runs because you can't score as it is. So you have to hope that you either have someone who can blow guys away and get strikeouts and pop-ups, or let Cole go get strikeouts and pop-ups. You cannot turn that inning over to Trevino. This is not a knock on him, but your option can't be, I'm going Cole to Trevino. It's either Cole stays in or I got to go to the best I have in the pen. I cannot go to Trevino in that spot. He's not going to get out of that inning clean. There's no chance he's going to get out of anything clean. That, from a managerial standpoint, makes no sense. Now, you want to say the Yanks are dead already on the day? Fine. But at 2-0 in the 6th inning, you can't act like you're dead already, even though you are. Even though you have no offense. The Yankees have been carried by Judge for so much of this year. At times, they got performances from other guys, but they've been carried by Judge. You want to say Judge is exhausted from his home run chase? I don't know. You want to say they're just doing a good job getting him out? Fine. Whatever you want to say is okay. The bottom line is he's 1 for 12 in this series. He's 1 for 12, and the Yankees can't win when Judge is 1 for 12. But it's not just Judge at 1 for 12. Judge is 1 for 12. Torres is 1 for 11 with 5 Ks. The catchers are 0 for 10 with 7 Ks. Donaldson's 1 for 9 with 7 Ks. Carpenter, who you rush back, is 1 for 9 with 7 Ks. This is not baseball. It's not postseason performances. You can't continue this way. I hated the lineup today. Hated it. I understand. I don't want to hear that the Yankees don't have LeMahieu and they don't have Benintendi. You know what? Everybody misses players. And yes, their bullpen was ravaged by inefficiency and injury. King was a huge loss. Obviously, something happened to Holmes. You knew you weren't going to get anything more out of Chapman. That ship has sailed. But they had a bunch of live arms. They weren't all available in the postseason. But you want to see live arms and see a bullpen, just take a look at the Astro bullpen. Those are live arms. Those are guys who are ready to pitch in the postseason. Those are guys who are ready to win and compete in the postseason. Here's where it is right now. The Yankees have been completely shut down offensively the entire postseason. They found a way with Cole and enough home runs to get by an Indian team which had no power and had really very little in the way of a lineup other than Ramirez. They had a couple of kids who were okay, but let's be honest, they didn't have a great lineup. They didn't hit home runs. Now they face the Astros. And let's be honest, Alvarez and Altuve haven't done anything in this series. And they're down 3-0. They haven't done anything. Altuve's in an all-time slump, and Alvarez hasn't done anything after wrecking the Mariners. He's done nothing. And they're still down. Dusty makes a move, it works. Boone makes a move, it backfires. But the bottom line is you can't win when you can't hit, and the Yankees can't hit a little. And if they're not hitting the ball out of the park, they are not going to win. Case closed. That's how they're built. That's who they are. And now they're not hitting at all. I mean, they've been struck out 41 times in 3 games. Yes, the number's going down each game, but it started at 17. So it had to go down each game. Now what you're looking for, okay, against a guy who has given you fits before in McCullers, who's just going to, throw you that nasty curveball for as long as he can go for 5 innings or 6 innings. Dusty just needs him to go 5 innings. And Cortez, you know what? He's had a good year. He does his job. But this is now about more than that. This is right now about just having some pride and not going down on your sword on your shield in 4 straight games and in your building tomorrow. We understand now that, first of all, we know the Yankees weren't as good as this team. This team was clearly the class of the American League. And you could say, along with the Dodgers, the class of baseball. The Dodgers aren't here. We know that. But we know how good the Astros have been. They showed the Yankees that in the regular season. They show everybody that when you see them. They're a wonderful team that has very few weaknesses, and they really can pitch. And they know how to win. And they have winning players, and they have veteran players, and they have some good young players, and they have a really nice mix. And they have everything you need to be a championship team. And the Yankees are not. And I will have a lot to say about that once this is over, because why bother doing it when it's 3-0? Because you're going to do it again when it's over anyway. So we'll save the retrospective and where the Bombers go from here. That will be a very interesting discussion. And there's a lot to discuss in that area. But right now, what you want to see is you want to see the team wearing those uniforms show some pride. So show some backbone. Don't go quietly into the night with another anemic offensive performance that is just embarrassing. Because the word right now, from anybody, from Yankee fan to Yankee hater, is embarrassing. The Yankees have been mortified in this series. They have been embarrassed in this series. They have been taken out and just whipped in this series in every possible way. They look clueless. They look like they don't have a prayer. Houston has zero fear or respect about this team. This series was going to be, Houston was going to get their comeuppance, and they're waiting to play him. And we heard about how it had to go through Houston, and it had to happen. And Houston has embarrassed the Yankees. Case closed. And at least, the Yankees have to make the Astros work for this. Not completely continue what has gone on for 3 games, where the Yankees put up 2 runs on a couple of hits, then 2 runs on a couple of hits, then no runs on 1 hit into the 9th inning. And yes, they did put back-to-back hits together in the 9th. What a mighty rally that was. They actually got 2 hits in an inning to bring their hit total to all of 3 for the ball game. Forget Cole not doing the job today. I'm not a Cole guy. I never have been. He didn't pitch badly. He deserved a chance to get out of that inning. But he didn't do the job you expected him to do. And I don't know, Judge might be on fumes, and maybe he doesn't have it. So then it's got to be to Rizzo or to Stanton or to Torres, who's done nothing in this series. I would take Donaldson out of the lineup. You've seen enough of Donaldson. Against the McCullers curveball, you want to keep Carpenter in as DH and put Stanton in the outfield, fine. But they need to go out there and at least have a moment in the series. At least make the Astros a little uncomfortable before they ride off to the World Series. That's all you can ask for right now. And you take this in stages. You try and do that tomorrow. You try and show some guts and some backbone and some self-respect tomorrow and get this thing to Monday. And then you try to get it back to Houston just to make them feel uncomfortable. Nobody expects the Yankees to win now. I understand we have seen a team do this before, but everything had to fall into place. And that was the most bizarre series on so many levels. That team had it twice in games 4 and 5, steal games they were losing late, including the 9th inning against the greatest reliever of all time, and they were able to extend the game and win it in extra innings. And then come from 2 runs down late the next game And then the Yankees were out of pitches. And it led to a 4-game collapse. Don't expect to see that against that kind of staff that you're looking at with Houston. Houston's staff is just way too good. But if you're Boone right now, if you're the Yankees right now, you have to appeal to just them having some guts and some self-respect and not just going quietly into the night here in 4 straight games. And the Yankees, after game 2, embarrassed themselves. Not Judge. Not Judge. Because Judge stood up and said, I was playing in that wind all night. I knew when I hit it, it wasn't a homer. Rather than have these guys in the postgame of a game they lose, have the pitchers talk about exit velo and cheap home runs, and then balls that are windblown and don't go out. The Yankees made every excuse known to man in that game. That went from the manager on down, except for Boone. I mean, except for Judge. He didn't make any. I mean, well, if the roof wasn't open, blah, blah, blah. Hey, be quiet. And the idea that the home run that the Astros hit, the 3-run jack that they hit that actually stood up and won the game, was in some way a cheap home run. Go back and look at it if you think that's the case. Go back and look at that home run if you think for a second that Bregman's home run is a cheap home run. That's nonsense. But just more whining and talking about injuries and who's not here and this and that. Hey, you won 99 games. You actually got the ship righted a little bit down the stretch. And you pounded a bunch of home runs and pounded your chest and watched Judge break records. And you know what? That's how the Yankees like to act. And when the Yankees won against an overmatched Cleveland team, they mocked them. I understand that the Indians had done some stupid things. I understand that happened, okay? But the Yankees didn't have to get involved in it, but they did. They should be better than that. Okay? They should be better than that. Naylor, I don't know what he was motivated by, but that doesn't mean you have to jump on it and do the same thing. But that's what went on in that series. Well, that same team that acted that way are going to go meekly into the night here, overpowered by this Houston pitching staff, which is making the Yankees absolutely look weak, overmatched, and just mortifying them from start to finish. I mean, they are toying with the Yankees right now. And if the Yankees have any backbone, any pride, they have got to stop that, even if it is only for one game, if they can. And maybe they can't. Maybe McCullers is going to throw the kind of game he's thrown against them in the past, and we're going to go quietly into the night. When that happens, when the 4th game is over, and it could be over as early as tomorrow, then we got a lot to talk about with this team. And we have to talk about whether or not this team will do anything, because that's an interesting question in its own right. Are they satisfied in this day and age to have the economics where they want it and just make sure they have enough postseason dates to get the bottom line where they need it? Every time you open the stadium in the postseason, you make a lot of money. And remember, that's for the owners, that money. Players get a share, but it's not anything to write home about. The bottom line is owners make big money in the postseason. But how much will they go to get all the way back? And it brings up everything we've talked about in recent years in this enormously barren run the Yankees have been on since their last championship in 2009. And of course, if you think about that one, if that one didn't exist, and some people obviously forgot that it did exist, but I mean, if it didn't exist, you would have had changes and different careers for so many people. It's amazing what would have happened if that one title didn't happen. Because it salvaged a lot of careers and changed a lot of avenues for people's careers. But it's still been a very long time since they've been all the way to a World Series, which used to be the goal. You can accurately bring up whether it is the goal anymore. But we'll discuss all that when the time comes. Right now, what you first want to see is just a little backbone, just a little pride. And not another, 12 or 13 strikeouts and 3 or 4 hits and another, 4-1 defeat. Because right now, the Yankees are getting their rear ends kicked. They are being embarrassed from one end of the Bronx to the other. And across the entire country by the hated Astros, who they owed a beating. Obviously one that is not coming anytime soon. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks for listening to the Mike Francesa podcast on the Bet Rivers Network.